There's a remarkable new technology that few know about yet, but many soon will. But before we tell you about it, here's a question for you to think about momentarily. It concerns two famous Americans who were born almost in the same year. The first is John D. Rockefeller, the richest American of all time. The second is John Muir, the father of environmentalism. Now here's the question. These two pioneers obviously took very different paths through life. But do you think they would have or could have agreed about anything? We're going to speculate here that yes, there is a thing they would have theoretically agreed upon. And it represents a potential fusion between environmentalism and big profit making. Are you ready to hear about it? Okay, here we go. This new thing is called the HydroCarbon Splitter. We call it that because it splits hydrocarbons, typically methane gas or natural gas, into the constituent elements, hydrogen and carbon. It does so in a revolutionary new way that's both uniquely clean and highly profitable. It could whimsically be called the environmental cash cow. But equally important to making big profits is solving the big environmental problems, especially climate change. And in this respect, the hydrocarbon splitter has absolutely unique potential because of its ability to profitably clean the atmosphere and financially incentivize the process. There are currently no hydrocarbon splitters yet in operation. The developers of the technology are looking for a beachhead for the first installation. The question then becomes, where should we install the first units? We're going to present 4 possibilities here that illustrate the wide-reaching benefits to our society and economy. Our first proposal for where to initiate hydrocarbon splitters is the quickest and cheapest of all the options. It's the ethanol plants in the Central Valley of California, a rich agricultural region with huge supplies of ag waste and livestock poop, which is the perfect feedstock for making methane. It's already zoned for industry, which means permitting and red tape are minimized. It already has freight railway infrastructure and already contains much of the needed processing machinery. The main problem with ethanol plants today is that the profit margins are now painfully low. Hydrocarbon splitters could radically change this situation because hydrogen, fuzzy fiber carbon, and graphene can sell on the open market for much more than ethanol. We can also add in methanol production, the new zero-emission liquid fuel that replaces gasoline. This opens the door to much greater profit. Our second design proposal for implementation of hydrocarbon splitters involves formulating them into a 10-acre park in a place where normally the real estate costs would be too high for a new nature-preserved recreational-style park. In this design, we see multiple hydrocarbon splitters arranged around a circular freight rail track. The red pipeline depicted here is for methane and natural gas input. The methane comes from a nearby sewage treatment plant plus on-site biomass processors. The hydrocarbon splitters separate the methane gas into pure hydrogen and highly valuable solid carbon for making carbon fiber and graphene. The hydrogen is shipped out in the blue pipeline, while the carbon is loaded into and shipped out by freight rail cars. On one side of the park, we've got trucks delivering locally collected biomass and all forms of solid waste from which to make methane. Nearby, other trucks pick up hydrogen for delivery to markets. On the other side, on the waterfront, we have a new kind of electrolyzer that can make high-pressure hydrogen from seawater. Next door is a hydrogen ferryboat dock and refueling station. Next to that is a kelp farm for use in creating biomass feedstock for making methane. After the industrial infrastructure is up and running, we cover it all up with well-ventilated planted berms, landscaped gardens, and trees. In a post-pandemic economy, here's a project that would create lots of needed jobs. In this version, we include an amphitheater and music performance space, retail space, a playground for kids, and a rock climbing wall. Here you can see the train entrance to the tunnel, which, actually has over 128,000 square feet of usable space inside. There would thus be ample room here for a museum on green industry. The idea here is that if industry becomes clean, it doesn't need to be separated anymore from nature access, or recreation, culture, and education. Clean industry could thus propagate multitudes of city parks. A third ripe location for hydrocarbon splitters and methanol production plants is oil refineries. Here's the Chevron oil refinery in Richmond, California, a prime example. If you've been reading up on industry trends, you'll know that because of both climate change and the plummeting price of renewable energy, the fossil fuel industry is in a challenging situation right now. Internationally prominent economic analyst Jeremy Rifkin bluntly states that the fossil fuel civilization will collapse by 2028. This is because of basic market forces. Methanol technology is a solution for the fossil fuel industry on multiple fronts. First of all, it could completely decarbonize natural gas and make it a zero-emissions green fuel that is not only cleaner, but much more profitable than it is now. Like the power park, it could also function as a waste disposal center that solves and profits from our nasty plastics disposal problem. Importantly, there'd be huge public relations payoff to a company like Chevron becoming a green energy company. Burning of hydrocarbons, even natural gas, is not zero emissions. The hydrocarbon splitter is a zero emission step in the transition to renewable feedstocks. Contrary to what most environmentalists think, the fossil fuel industry can adapt to the changing times by making clean methanol instead of gasoline. Perhaps the ripest locations for implementation of hydrocarbon splitters and methanol production infrastructure are coal-fired power plants worldwide. There are over 80 coal plants in the U.S. and over 2,400 in the world at large, most of them in China. Coal plants are arguably the most harmful of all environmental villains with respect to both climate change and smog. Over 4 million people die prematurely a year worldwide because of air pollution, including 100,000 per year in the U.S. alone. The consequences of runaway climate change in the next decade would be far worse. Retrofitting all coal plants to burn green hydrogen instead of coal would completely solve this problem. Coal plants with giant smokestacks and long trains that bring in huge amounts of coal each day are the problem. Many coal plants are changing to less expensive natural gas. But look at how much cleaner it could be with hydrogen. Here we can see coal collection yards transformed to a bank of multiple hydrocarbon splitters, cleanly making hydrogen from both piped-in natural gas and methane from waste, including plastic wastes. Besides making electricity by cleanly burning the hydrogen, the plant also could contain large-scale methanol production capacity. Clean trains now carry methanol outbound to markets as a replacement for gasoline and diesel fuel. Because a dirty power plant has now been fundamentally transformed into zero-emissions clean industry, a giant air cleaning device no less, it could now become a tourist attraction that includes a museum and a green industry learning center. In many locations, 600-foot smokestacks could be turned into large wind turbines, plus a highly popular observation tower affording breathtaking views of the surrounding region. In conclusion, the hydrocarbon splitter is the clean yet profitable technology we've been waiting for. It can now motivate us to quickly retrofit and upgrade the outdated and dirty 20th century industrial infrastructure that is now causing such great environmental damage. Combining it with the new solid waste processing technology from biocarbon fuels, it could solve the plastic waste nightmare that is now impacting our oceans. It could potentially solve the climate crisis because we won't have to wait for and spend the money on all new energy infrastructure. With methanol fuel, we can turn existing transportation vehicles and existing power plants into not just zero-emission machines, but air cleaning devices that could completely rid the world of both smog and greenhouse gases. Contrary to prevailing and outdated belief, a brand new energy technology does not need to be a financial burden on our society. It could be a historical financial boon, creating large profits, huge numbers of jobs, and largely in place within 10 years. Bottom line, with the stakes now being what they are, we simply can't afford not to explore in depth something this promising. Please contact us with your questions.